When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there. Good morning to you all. Welcome to episode 110 of Join Up Dots. Do you know, there's sometimes in my life I slap my head and go, how stupid am I? I'm recording today and the rain is ploughing down on me. I can hear it pitter-pattering all over my roof. Hopefully it won't come up on the mic. And the chap I'm going to be speaking to is in Spain, probably laying on his little bench, having a nice glass of whatever. Beautiful. Now, I'm in Spain next week. I should have just done it over there. I should have done it live, and that would have sort of joined two things together. But as he's online, let's start talking to him, because he is a man on a mission to help the world self-develop, progress, and move to a better future, all at a time and pace that is convenient for them. He started his first business at the age of 12, and since then has travelled the world whilst pursuing his passion of leadership and team culture development on a larger scale. Now, in 2008, he founded Actionable Books, which led to him winning in 2009 the Entrepreneurial Spirit Award by using business books as a platform for leader and team growth. But knowing that by utilising technology that is both easy to get and easy to carry around, I suppose, he could grow his brand even further. In 2010, he went online and launched Actionable Interviews, where he's conducted interviews with such big thinkers such as Seth Godin, Susan Cain, and our own British Sir Ken Robinson. Now, if this sounds like success after success, then think again. As with all entrepreneurs, the story is one of success, failures, stumbles and falls. So let's bring onto the show to start joining up the dots of his life, the one and only Mr. Chris Taylor. How are you, Chris?
I'm wonderful, David. Thanks for having me.
It is lovely to have you on. And as I was saying in the introduction, wow, we should have done this live. We could have been recording with our microphones, feet in the pool. It would have been perfect.
Next time, David, we'll do the follow-up.
I'm not actually sure if water and microphones go well. Can you get electrocuted by a microphone?
Well, there's only one way to find out, but I'm sure they have some sort of device for that, right? Some way to stay safe.
I think so, and it would go viral. It would be good for traffic. I don't care about sort of the fear of death as long as I get some traffic. Is that shallow?
That's it. It's all about the clicks, right?
It's all about the clicks, yes. Make sure that things go viral. So you have had a bit of a journey. So you obviously are not Spanish. So can I start with, why are you living in Spain? Was it a place that you went to and just fell in love with, or was your business set up there? How's that gone about?
Yeah, it's interesting, David. I'm originally from Canada. I lived in most of the provinces across Canada at various points throughout my life. I'd never been to Spain I'd actually never been to Europe until 2012, when my wife and I came over here for the first time to do a little tour. But it was interesting. My grandparents back in the 70s used to have a place in Spain, and I grew up with these stories of sort of this romantic land called Spain. And I think, at a very young age that made an imprint. And I've had this romantic and almost magical image of Spain since I was a child. And so my wife and I came over here in 2012 to check it out and fell in love with the particular region that we're in, which is sort of southern Catalonia. And so we started putting the plan in motion to move here and make sure that the business could support us in that. So we've been here now for about 10 months and loving every day of it. And as you say, it's sunny almost every day of the year, and certainly a lot warmer than Canada during the winter months.
Now, I didn't quite hear the area. So were you up near Barcelona area? Is that where you were saying?
That's right. Yeah, we're just about halfway between Barcelona and Valencia.
So are you near things like Tossa de Mar and Lloret de Mar and the kind of holiday places that us Brits go to?
Yes, absolutely. Lots of Brits in this area, and increasing in numbers as we get more and more into the summer.
I do apologise, Chris. I can't apologise more. You have it to yourself in the winter and it's lovely, and then we all come over and we lay on the beach as soon as we get there and just drop skin on you for the rest of the 2 weeks.
Yes, absolutely. That's the way it goes.
There's a thing about us English, though, that if you see the Germans, and this is going to be a sweeping stereotype, but it's true as well. But if you see the Germans go on holiday, they will go there, and the very first day they will do like 20 minutes in the sun, and the next day 30 minutes, and they build it up. And so when they go home, they've got this lovely creosote brown colour. But the English kind of go from rain to suddenly 9.5 hours laying there basting themselves, and then wonder that why we go home as white as when we came. It's just sort of lunacy.
A little bit, yeah. Thankfully, I've the group that we've sort of become friends with here is mostly expats from England, and they've been here long enough to know the differences and the appropriate way to take in the sun. So they're almost becoming locals. But yeah, it is a funny thing to go down to the beach and see all sorts of different people embracing summer in totally different ways. Some of them all in for sure.
So if we jump back into your life, because Join Up Dots is about connecting up your life. And would it be true when I said it's been a story of success, failures, stumbles and falls? Do you look back on your life and kind of go, wow, what a ride this been?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think particularly when you hear, someone sort of rattle off, it's just 7 or 8 years worth of things that were in rapid succession. It's funny. I was just looking at, as you mentioned in the beginning, I'm a big fan of Seth Godin, and he just published a blog post about 30 years of projects that he'd done. And I just think amazing to look at, a 2-page document that encapsulates someone's 30 years of hard work. So anyway, yeah, when you look back on the stage of my life that we've got to and where we're at, I think, the only thing that I don't really feel in the moment is those successes and failures don't feel as grandiose in the moment as they do looking back on them. I think, it's one of those things where we ease into them, or I've eased into successes. I mean, it's never like suddenly the next day there's this big success that you weren't expecting. I mean, you've been working towards it and missing it and working towards it and missing it. And then, you hit 80% of what you set out to do. But then in hindsight, that 80% was a major, accomplishment. So I think, there's that constant ongoing piece for me about, it's not as binary or as black and white as success and then failure. It's a constant journey, right? And as you say, it's a roller coaster. I do my best, and I spend a lot of time focusing on reducing the emotional impact of that roller coaster. It's for better or worse. This is the path we're on, and so you got to enjoy the ride, right, and not get too brought down by the lows.
Yeah, absolutely. But do you celebrate the successes? Do you see those successes and jump on the nearest Spanish donkey and ride round the town? That's an image for you. Because I found since I've been doing this, I've had many successes, and I'm terrible at celebrating them. I kind of look at them and kind of go, oh, right, achieved, moved on to the next bit. Are you like that, or are you somebody that goes, yes, I've done it, and for 2 days party like a lunatic, party like it's 1999?
Probably somewhere in the middle, David. I learned years ago, this is probably 12 years ago, that there is something really powerful about celebrating the small wins that to the outside world may not actually be that big a deal, but to you, something that you did that you take a personal satisfaction in. Maybe for yourself, it's a particularly strong interview where you go, man, I just nailed that. I hit every point that I wanted to. We really pulled out some great stuff
everyone,
there.
Chris, can I just say, everyone? There's no weak points to this show. Even if I'm on my own and I'm not recording, it's a belter.
What I do, David, and everyone's got their own thing, I go and I buy a very, very small bottle of champagne. They sell in Canada, and here it's Cava, but in Canada they sell these 200 milliliter bottles of Henkel Trocken. They cost about the price of a beer, and they're, it's terrible champagne, but it's not even champagne. But the point is, that's my sort of identifier of celebration. And I've started to make a habit of making it Tuesdays. Tuesday night, instead of, a pint after work, I'm going to drink this little bottle of champagne and, sort of cheers the world and my wife, if she's around, and celebrate the small wins as much as the big ones. I think we need to celebrate more of the little ones and not be waiting for the big monstrous success that, as we sort of discussed earlier, just, sneaks up on you, or doesn't sneak up on you, just happens over a long period of time.
And do you generally have successes every week, or do some weeks you're just laying on the sofa with your bottle of champagne thinking, I'm not going to open you this week. I'm just going to be looking at you.
Good. No, I think the point is to find something to celebrate. I think for those that are working hard, every
That's
week has something worth celebrating, if not the result. It's
once
every 20 minutes.
Yeah, once you start doing, there's right? Another success. I've just opened a cupboard. Oh, there's a glass. That's a success.
Yeah, exactly. You got to find that balance point, I think, for sure.
So we are going to sort of delve into actionable books, but I'm very keen on the step before that. So when you was a young child, what was your sort of dream? If somebody, and we're going to send you back later on the Sermon on the Mic, but if somebody said to you, Chris, when you was like a 10-year-old, what did you want to be? What would have been your answer? I would imagine it wasn't going to be what you're doing now.
No, I wanted to be a filmmaker.
I thought there was going to be more to that. I thought you were going to tell me about making films and making Jaws 5 in your bathtub or something. But well,
if you want me to elaborate, fine, absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to.
That's a conversation, Chris. That's a conversation. We elaborate.
Oh,
it's not all me, you know.
It's a back and forth. Oh, I didn't realize that, David. Thank you for explaining this. It's the whole thing where I have to remind myself: breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Same sort of idea here, right?
That's living.
That's it, exactly. I think the story is fairly common. I think for anyone who's pursued some sort of art form. I mean, I discovered the family video camera when I was about 12 years old. Fell in love with what you could do and create, and started making stop animation videos with action figures of record for half a second and stop, and then move the arm a little bit. And I was recording on, it was VHS tapes, right, or not even back then. I pursued that right through school, through high school. I was really fortunate. My high school was a pilot for the county to determine whether it made sense to spend a ridiculous amount of money on audio video equipment for high school students. And I don't think it did. But I had access to all this state-of-the-art equipment. We had like a television studio in our high school. And so I really jumped into that, and I started, convincing my teachers that they should let me make movies instead of take accounting and things like this. And they did. And so I was making movies all through high school. And then when I went to university, I did 1 year of it was one sort of mistake year doing economics, which was just a bad decision. And then shifted my focus and went into film in a different school across the country, and spent 4 glorious years making movies with other sort of grown-up children that all believed in make-believe and wanted to create something. And so it was a ton of fun, and I think I still do it. I still do a little bit of stuff, both sort of personally as a hobby, but then also with the author interviews that I've been doing has a video component to it. It was a lot of fun.
There's a lot of similarities with a lot of the conversations that I'm having. One of the taglines that we've got on the show, or the tagline, is connecting our past to build our futures, because I'm a great believer now that if we look back on the things that we loved doing as a child, there's similarities that we should be doing as adults, because that's our core passions. That's the things that we would have done even if we weren't being paid for them. And are there sort of similarities with those kind of making movies and constructing things that you can now see in your life that fills you with that passion?
Oh, 100%. I think, filmmaking is a form of maker. You're creating something and bringing it into the world. The thing that I always loved about film was that you couldn't do it alone. You can, but it's not the same. To make the sort of size of production that I was really interested in, it was a matter of working collaboratively with a team of people that were not employees. And when you were in school, it was, they were all peers and collaborators. And so how do you sort of organize this loose mob into a productive team that really needs to work well together? And I was fascinated by that dynamic of it, and loved the working ridiculous hours and then relaxing and enjoying each other's company and celebrating the wins. There's that celebration piece again. I am starting to sound like an alcoholic, David. Thanks a lot for that. You're doing a great job of painting a nice light there. That's good.
I have heard 4 pops during the show, and I've just wondered whether you've opened a few bottles as we've been going.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's just a bad connection. That's nothing to do with champagne at noon.
Every time you move your leg, another bottle goes off. I can hear it, Chris. I can hear it. I tell you what, as you was talking about making videos and all that kind of stuff, do you miss, because I was having a little rant with my kids the other day, and I'm at the age of 44 now, and I'm looking forward to being 80. When I can just say anything I want and I don't care if somebody gets upset. And my father is now into that. He just kind of opens his mouth and pretty much upsets people and doesn't know that he's doing it. And I was saying to them, they were watching DVDs, and I was saying, DVDs are rubbish. When I was a kid, we used to have VHSs or Betamax. Do you remember Betamax, Chris?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had a couple Star Wars videos on beta, yeah.
Yeah, and you used to have the top loader ones that you slammed down. It was like having a fridge in a drawer somewhere where you used to put these things in. But the thing that annoys me with DVDs that you didn't get with VHSs is all the adverts at the beginning, which the thing won't let you move past. And you press the button and it says, you cannot do this on this disc at this time. And you think, I just want to watch a film. I don't want to watch all this stupid stuff beforehand. But on a VHS, you could just wind forward, couldn't you? Do you think we've gone back?
Could, yeah.
We haven't gone forward, have we? Progress has stopped with the demise of VHS. I think that we shouldn't be able to be... It's kind of like, I don't know, Nazism in DVD. It's stopping me moving on with my life when I want to. I should be able to press that button and get to the film. And I'll tell you, I'm having a rant here, actually, Chris. The thing that winds me up most with these DVDs is when they actually they put an advert of the film you're going to watch beforehand, and you can't get past it, and so you're actually watching the film before you're going to watch. Is that terrible?
Yeah. Well, I don't know why you're still watching DVDs, man. I mean, I was just thinking, when was the last time I watched a commercial I didn't want to watch? And it was when I was watching a DVD. So, in the last 4 or 5 years, some of us have moved into watching things digitally online. But, whatever works for you, David.
Are you saying I'm out of touch, Chris? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just suggesting that your kids may have some insight for you there on how to skip past those adverts by, a different medium or something like that.
It is wrong, though, isn't it? It is wrong. When I press a button, I'm not being allowed to live my life the way that I want to live.
The button should do what the button's supposed to do. It has one function. It should do it. I totally agree.
I think that is the tagline for this show. And I want all my listeners to jot that down. The button should do what the button should do. I think you could build a whole career for them. That is absolutely perfect. Seth Godin would like that. But if you speak to Seth, he would write a whole book on that. So if we go back to sort of books and stuff, when did the first, the passion for the Actionable Books come about? It was your own personal development, was it? You started reading books and looking at them, and then that gave you the idea, or did it go further back than that?
No, I mean, I think, I've always been an avid reader. My mom was a teacher growing up. And so, I've always been big into reading. I've always enjoyed fiction in particular. When I ran, my first sort of real job, if you will, was leading a sales team immediately after university. And there's a longer story, but it went very well. And then due to sort of ego and hubris, crashed. And I started reading at that point when I was at the bottom of, financial ruin and not knowing where I was going with my life. And I was 23 years old. And it was, sort of all crumbling around me. And I started reading to try to, I think originally to blame somebody. I mean, I wanted to read something in a book and be like, see, if I just known that, then I would have been fine. But I started reading and found that, I was consuming these books at this voracious pace. And there was really good stuff in there, but I wasn't doing anything with it. I was reading it going, oh, that's interesting, and then moving on. And I started to get frustrated with the fact that I was consuming these great books, these, business books, the Good to Greats and 7 Habits and Think and Grow Rich and these sort of quote unquote classics, and not applying anything. And so I went on this mission basically where back in 2007, I committed to reading a book a week for a year, and not just reading a book, but taking one idea from that book and putting it into practice. Because I thought, enough is enough. I've gotten myself into the position that I'm in through what I already know. And so it's that whole idea, right, that what got you here won't get you there, and wanted to sort of advance. And so, Actionable Books started as a blog, started as a place for me to share the learnings that I was taking from these books with people that were interested in applying the ideas into their life. And it's grown. We now have almost 600 free business book summaries on the site. Thankfully, I'm no longer writing all of them. There is a team of 93 or 94 volunteers that produce those summaries. And we've got a great little community growing up around this idea that ideas are only valuable when they're applied.
So your life at the moment, you have created this thing, which for people out there who want to create a business, a blog or a podcast or anything online is possibly one of the cheapest ways of doing it. And now you've taken it to such a level that you can almost step back and be strategic, and all the kind of the stuff that, to be honest, Chris, gets you down, all this kind of bits and bobs and the social media and all that kind of stuff that takes up all your time. You've actually got a free rein to push it in the direction that you want.
Well, to an extent. I mean, it's not quite. I'm actively involved on the sales front. I'm actively involved on the content development front. I also manage our consultant program, which is a licensing model it's global. So you're right. I mean, from the social media standpoint, from the sort of accounts and financial management piece, for the marketing side, we built a fabulous team, and so there's really great people that are working with Actionable who are leading different sections of that. But no, I certainly wouldn't say I'm lounging on the beach enjoying cocktails just yet. But I love what I'm doing. Truly, I know people say that, but I do. I mean, I can't imagine spending my days any other way than I do, and getting a chance to chat with people like yourself and talk about the company. It's a lot of fun. I'm having a great time with it.
I bet you would get down to the beach, but you're so drunk on champagne you can't stagger down there. I reckon that's the only thing that holds you back.
Couldn't make it down the stairs. Exactly
right. Couldn't make it down the stairs. So is your team a virtual team? Are you based in Spain, or are you scattered all over the world?
No, we're scattered, intentionally so. So since day one, we've never had a physical office. I've focused on attracting the right people regardless of where they live. So no, we have a team of 8 spread between 6 time zones and 4 countries. And we connect on a daily basis in the case of a lot of us, and then on a weekly basis for just about everybody, and on a monthly basis for the couple that are doing their own thing. And so we continue to grow that way, and we meet up physically once a quarter or so. And then for most of the core team in North America, and then globally we meet up on an annual basis. And it's not for everybody, that format, but it certainly suits everyone on my team, and we have a lot of fun with it.
Well, I was having a conversation with a chap last night, and we were waxing lyrical about this. And it kind of comes from the sort of Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, where you can, remotely operate across the globe. But the brilliance about what you're doing is, number one, you're covering 24 hours with the time zones. When you're asleep, somebody else is working, and when they're asleep, you're working, and vice versa. And how many businesses do that 24 hours a day? Doesn't really happen. And the other beauty about that is you are saying to the people who are on your team, here's your task, go and do your task. I'm not going to manage you, but effectively, if you don't do it when I ask for it, you're in trouble. Would that be about right?
Except for the front end, we do it collaboratively. So I have a clear vision that I share once a year as far as where we're going. And then as a group, we discuss the most effective way to get there. So while technically they're employees of Actionable and technically I'm their boss, it really and truly, it's a collaborative process. And I just make sure that we hire the right people on the front end. I mean, I've made those mistakes in the past, but my style is not to manage. My style is to collaborate and support. And so when we talk about it, I mean, they're the ones that are making the commitment to when it's going to be done and what it's going to look like. And my job is to support them. And it works well. It works really well in that format, because I don't need to, nor would I want to, be managing, the various pieces along the way. We've got great people that have an ownership on their own piece of the business.
But that's how business should operate. I think that was the key point to when I left my job. I did the leap of faith, left my 9-to-5 job, because I realised that I'd been doing it longer than anyone else, and I was still getting new managers that were coming in telling me what to do, and it used to really annoy me. I used to think, just leave me to it. I can do it better than you anyway. And I don't mean that arrogantly, but I could. And I just thought to myself, surely you should just let the people play to their strengths and do the task, and whether they want to do it at 3 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, and whether they want to do a bit and then stop because they want to go and see their kids in a school play or something and then start again. The bottom line is, have you done it, and are you doing it really well? And the loyalty that you must build up from these people, it must be beyond anything that you could get in a corporate gig.
I'd like to think so. Yeah, I mean, people stay with the company for longer, I think, than the average time, particularly with smaller, younger company like ours. I think we have a lot of fun. We joke around a lot, and there's a lot of great sort of collaboration and sense of unity in what we're working towards. But I totally hear you. I mean, I think, one of the reasons in the corporate world why that sort of management piece comes into place, that micromanagement piece, is twofold. One is, I think a lot of companies don't hire properly. I think they hire for technical skill first and culture alignment last, or not at all. And I think that's ass backwards. I think the only way that I've found to make this work is really getting clear on, here's where we're going as a company. Does that align for you? And tell me about that so I can hear the actual enthusiasm. Then secondly, here's how we operate. And it's not for everybody. You have complete autonomy and control, which sounds great, but doesn't work for a lot of people. They need some direction and structure. So appreciating that. And then let's talk about the technical skill as far as what you need to do and how you do it. And so many companies to me, now I've got a rant going here. So many companies to me go in the other direction of let's hire for technical skill first and figure out the rest later. Then they realize that, oh, holy cow, this doesn't work. And I need to stay totally on top of this person in order to make sure they're doing what they need to do, because either there is no alignment or I haven't taken the time to figure out what that alignment is. So rather than risk it, I'm going to, smother them because it's my ass on the line as their boss too, because, the metrics are tied to me, yada, yada. And so I think, to your point, companies that get this right thrive, and the employees love working there, and the companies have way better profitability because they're, to your point, instead of having all these new managers come through, you build these intact teams that have a strong sense of alignment and connection to one another. We've been through some fairly trying times as a team, particularly with the core group. We've been together now for just over 2 years. And it's, we've gone through some very lean patches, and it's that whole trial by fire thing where you really come out stronger. If you survive it, you come out stronger and more sort of fused out the other side. So I have no idea what the original question was, David, but this is my opinion on hiring process.
It was a valuable rant to put out to the world. Not as valuable as my DVD rant. I think that really is
of course not.
Yeah, that's the thing that the world needs. When you look back, I really want to jump back to when you were saying when you were 23, 24, everything was unraveling, because that seems to be a fascinating part of most people's lives, where if they look back to the time, we call it the big dot on Join Up Dots, but the time when they look back and go, oh God, that was a dreadful time. I really wouldn't want to go through that again, but God, I wouldn't be here now or without it. Would that be the same sort of answer that you would supply looking back to when you were 23, 24 and everything was unraveling?
Yeah, that's certainly one of the biggest ones. That's probably the biggest one for sure.
So how did that happen? How did you start unraveling?
Sorry, I was going to try to embrace this. Yeah, I was going to embrace this whole conversation thing and keep talking there. But so the how did it start unraveling? I think this will sound mildly arrogant until I get to the point about me being in total ruin. I marched through my adolescence and high school and university days without any major setbacks of any kind, really. Man, when I finished university, all 4 of my grandparents were still alive. I literally never had any sort of major issue in my life going into those years. And so you sort of start to think that, there'd been little setbacks, but you start to think, well, if I set that path, then that's the path that I'll end up on, because that's what's happened for the last, 20 some odd years. And you don't really know anything. Well, for me, I didn't really know anything otherwise. And to go from So the sales business that I was running, I had 120 sales reps at one point, and we were one of the top 3 offices in North America out of about 1,000 offices, and making lots of money, like lots and lots of money. And so you get at 22, I figured that I had this all figured out. This business thing was a piece of cake, and this was the path of my life. Now I would move into that place where all I had to do was strategy, and checks would keep rolling in, and I'd buy the boat and the extra house and the whole thing, right? And then that went straight to my head, and I became extremely egotistical and focused on the wealth exclusively, and started to look at all the people on my team as dollar signs rather than actual people. And then, of course, the whole thing falls apart. And so it did. It fell apart. I ended up, about $90,000 in debt, which to an entrepreneur doesn't sound like a ton, but at the time it was at 23 on top of student loans. It feels like a lot. Plus, it was terribly managed. So I had about 7 or 8 collection agencies coming after me, trying to get their money back. It was a bad scene. And I just ignored it. I had that stack. I had a clipboard on my desk where every time a new bill came in that I couldn't pay, I would just shove it on the clipboard. And this clip was bent within inches of its or millimeters of its life because of so many bills. There must have been hundreds of bills packed into this clipboard, and it just sat on my desk. And so every time I came into the office, that's the first thing I would see is 100 and change bills that I couldn't pay. So you can imagine what that does for your psyche on a daily basis.
You didn't think of using a drawer? I would have hid them in a drawer.
No. Yeah. No, this was more of like this thing could kill a small animal, and I have to pay that at some point. And so it was great for my motivation and psyche. And And so I ended up sort of curling up in a ball, not physically, but mentally, and just shut down. And then my parents came out. So I was in Vancouver, which is on the west coast of Canada, and my parents were in Toronto, which is about 4,000 kilometers away. And they flew out and took me out for lunch and put a check for $600 in front of me and said, this can be a plane ticket home or whatever you want to do with it. But if you want, you can move back to the basement and curl up rent free. And so that's what I did. I cashed the check, bought a plane ticket, flew home. And that's actually when I started reading, was when I was in my parents' basement. And it started because I was wandering around the house aimlessly, probably, in my pajamas at 2:00 in the afternoon. And I went into my father's den, and he had a In Search of Excellence copy of In Search of Excellence on his desk from like 1983, or on his credenza. And I opened it up and started flipping through this, and thought, this is really interesting. This is dated, but this is really interesting. And so then I started reading at that point. That's where it all sort of started for me.
Do you remember how you felt when that check was put in front of you? Because I would struggle to accept that, even if I really needed that.
Oh, yeah.
How when they put it through, was it worse for you because it was your parents sort of giving it to you, or how did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty good about it. They made it easier in the sense of they almost treated it like tough love. And I think it was legitimately. I mean, they said, this is the last money that you'll receive from us. So do with it as you will. And so it was, and I didn't break down and hug them and thank them so much. I mean, again, there is that sense of, for me at the time, there was that ego still at play saying, I don't know if I need this, and I don't know if I want this, and this sort of thing. And, it's funny how memory can shift over time. And I honestly don't recall what my exact reaction was in the moment. My belief of that moment was that I was somewhat non-committal one way or another. And then, I do know that I took a few days to sort of figure it out and decide what I was going to do. They'd flown home, and I was still sort of wandering around the beach and the streets of Vancouver trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I think it is really hard to accept, particularly when you've committed to a path for way longer than rationally you should have, to accept, particularly someone else's urging that it's time to end that path and consider a new direction. So that was the first time, I think, ever, David, that I had, had a path that I was on and it had been fully committed to at some point, and then said, I need to completely shift directions here. And that's a big thing. It's a tough thing to do when you're a kid.
Well,
in general, I think.
I think it totally is. If you put all that much effort into something and it doesn't pan out. But I suppose the lessons from that is there's no such thing as a wasted experience. You have taken elements of that time and you have decided, I won't do that again. For example, I will use drawers and I will put all the bills in there and close it up so I can't see it. and layer champagne bottles on the top just so that it looks better as well. But you can take those failures, you can take those positives, and you can blend them into something else. And that's really what Join Up Dots is about. It's about saying to the listeners that nobody has got the answers. Whether you're looking at the Donald Trumps, the Richard Bransons, or whatever, they've had mistakes, they've had failures, but there are certain points when you do actually have to sort of accept that you need help, and I suppose you need to be gentle on yourself. You've got to stop beating yourself up and go, okay guys, yeah, all right, that wasn't what I was planning, but next time it's going to be better. And just, almost celebrate the failure as, right, I won't do that again, let's move on. What do you think about that?
No, I totally agree. And I think, the sooner that we can get to a point, the sooner in our lives that we can get to a point where we appreciate that everyone falls down, as you say, and it's literally inevitable if you're actually pursuing something that really matters to you, that you will fall down at some point. I have yet to meet someone who has gone through life and pursuing something of meaning and hasn't, bruised their knees and scuffed up their elbows. And so I think the sooner we can get comfortable with that, and the sooner we can move into that rhythm of, I'm going to try something. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, I'm going to see what I can learn from it. I'm going to apply that to the next level and go to the next one. And I've started thinking about it much more in terms of sort of climbing a mountain with going up and then a plateau, then maybe a bit of a down, and then going back up, but going higher than you did before, and then a plateau. and thinking about that in terms of, okay, this is the next plateau. And so now that I'm here, I need to figure out what I learned from the last stage of the climb. And then I need to reevaluate where the next stage of the climb goes. And maybe, from the bottom of the mountain, that path that made sense as a clear line straight up actually has a little more zigzag to it, because, going around that boulder is actually going to be a lot easier or a lot more fun or a lot more interesting. And so I'll go that way instead, and still working my way up, but I'll do it on a path that makes sense as I get closer to the moment of decision.
I'm going to play two of our motivational speeches in a moment that we play generally at this time of the show. But I was talking to a lady back on episode 88, I think it was, called Kathy O'Dowd, and she is the first lady to get to the top of Everest on both sides, the south and the east side,
cool.
North and south side. And I was saying to her, it must be amazing to get to the summit and stand there thinking to yourself, I'm at the top of the world, looking down on creation. There's almost a song there. And she said to me, it wasn't so much the getting to the top that she liked, it was the process. It was the process of, can I actually do that? And that's what you're saying there, isn't it? It's the actual one step after another, and stumbling around that rock and moving over there, and then realising, okay, I've come this far, let's go to the next point. And actually getting to the peak, you rarely are ever going to get to the peak, because once you get to the top, there's another top to keep on going.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think also, I love the fact that you interviewed someone who has actually literally done what I just used as an analogy. So that's fabulous. The part to me, though, is that even if you do get to that peak, even if you have that defined version of the peak and you get there, my belief and my experience, on the few sort of smaller peaks that I've reached so far, is that it's a shallow victory if you didn't enjoy the process to get there, and if you didn't create a lifestyle to get there that mattered to you. Because, earning that whatever, whether it's financial, fame, for whatever, if you do it and you get there broken, having, destroyed all your relationships and your health and your ability to enjoy the moment, I don't know what that is. I don't know what, how is that really success? And so I think it's important to, enjoy the journey is such a cliche, but it's, in my experience, it's the most important part for increasing your longevity and ability to pursue those higher peaks.
I agree with you totally on that, Chris. I'm gonna play words of a man now, and I normally will say who this person is, but I'm gonna play it, and you might have heard this, and so you will know who he is. But if not, see if you can guess. And I love these words, so I've started sort of throwing these into the show every now and again. Listen to this.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him, and so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant, and when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job, and our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
What do you think about that? Do you know who that is?
That's Jim Carrey, and it was an address. It's a great speech.
Oh, you're good. You are good. Yeah, it's Jim Carrey. But that is so spot on, isn't it? I love that. When I first heard that, I got shivers down my spine, and I felt inspired, and I could hear the Rocky music playing behind me, and I felt like running up steps with a dog and with a load of children running behind me and all that kind of stuff. You cannot fail to be inspired by those words. But so many people do not do that, do they? They go for the easy option. Right. And as we're finding out more and more times on this show, so many people have said to us, we have started moving on in our life when we realised actually making your own income is the safe choice. Working for somebody who can ultimately decide that they don't like your face one day and get rid of you is the risky choice. There's no job for life anymore. And if you can find that passion that you're doing, and you're building a company that is global and it's providing value to the world, then you are doing something that you love, and you're more likely to be successful, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know if you knew this or not, David, but I just finished writing a book called Beyond the Picket Fence. And it's called the subtitle is Freedom, Happiness, and the Choices That Get Us There. And it's really, the last couple of years of my life, I've been focused on these deliberate choices that people make in regards to creating a path or a life sort of design that makes sense for them, not on somebody else's terms, not on what sort of the status quo is, but on their own terms. And the one thing that I've discovered through that is that yes, absolutely. I think, if you can build an enterprise that, you're able to lead, and it allows you the freedom and flexibility and financial to, sort of pursue what you want to pursue, fabulous. And I think, coming back to our last point, I think it's really important that you know what it is that you want to pursue, and start to experiment with those things to not just be working towards an end goal, but actually enjoying the path. And we can talk about that. But I think one of the really important parts to me, a big wake-up call, was that sometimes building that house with the white picket fence and the 2.3 kids and the dog, and the more sort of normalcy, if you will, particularly by sort of North American standards, as to what the ideal life is, right? That great American dream sort of thing. It's not. I don't think it's a black and white of it's good or bad. I see people who are living that life deliberately, not just by default, but chose that life and are so happy in that life. And I have so much respect for that, where my focus and my interest, and what really gets me excited these days, is not so much what someone's life looks like, but the decisions that they made, the fact that they consciously said, this is what I want my life to look like, this is what I enjoy, and this is what I appreciate. I'm not going to let anybody define that for me, whether it's the status quo trying to tell me that I shouldn't live in Spain, or whether it's the people that are traveling the globe saying, how could you be in such a boring lifestyle as that? And I think, I know that the people that I see that are happiest in my life are the people that have made those deliberate choices and pursued them on their own terms with their spouse, family, partner, what have you, but not, sort of buying into the opinions of others in regards to that.
I'm going to play some more words now. These are the sort of real theme of the show. And this is Steve Jobs. I could have sat listening to you all the time there, and I was listening to you so intently that I forgot what I was going to ask afterwards. So I'm going to fall back. This is professionalism at its best. So when I can't think of what to say, I bring in Steve Jobs. So these are the words of Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college. But it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
Do those words mean anything to you, Chris?
Yeah, you talk about listening to a man speak. I can listen to Steve Jobs speak for hours. I think, yeah, absolutely. I had a great conversation with a gentleman named Mitch Joel, probably about a year and a half ago, I guess. He launched his new book called Control Alt Delete, and sort of superficially, the book's about the tech space and about our interaction with new media. But it was an interesting conversation because it went very quickly to this idea of squiggly careers. Squiggly careers is what Mitch called it. And it was this idea that, there are people out there that from a superficial look, or when they tell you what their next stage of life is looking like, it doesn't seem to make any sense. Mitch went from being a journalist to being a music producer to being an advertising guy. And it's kind of like, well, but shouldn't you just commit to one of those and follow it through? And as Mitch says now, the three major industries that he worked through over the course of 10 years really sort of defined and strengthened what he has now, what he's created, but he never could have defined that up front. I'm a huge proponent of the fact that we don't know what our life should look like at the age, or very few of us do anyway, at a young age. We come out of university and if you're faced with that question of what do I want to do for the next 35 years, I think it's a ludicrous question. I think, first of all, we have no idea what the world's going to look like in 10 years, let alone 35 years. Jobs that exist now didn't exist 5 years ago. And so we don't know, right? We don't know what that looks like. What we can do, though, is we can determine what excites us right now, what we can see as being something that we could be all consumed by. And I think we need to temper it with is there potential for revenue here? I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on it, but I do think we need to at least address the fact that we do need to earn money to live, or most of us do. And then I think we need to pursue it. If something really grabbed you and you're curious and inspired by it, you got to do it. Like, you just got to jump in and try it out. And, coming back to the earlier point, we will bang our knees and we will reach dead ends and we will have to turn around at points. But by and large, you're going to learn something from the experience, and you're going to be exposed to the next thing that arouses your curiosity. Like the business that I've built up here, I could never, there's no way I could have envisioned this, 7 years ago when I started the business. Now, I'm not talking about from a success standpoint. I'm thinking from like where I spend my time and how I'm engaging with the people in our community and the fact that we have a community and what they look like. I mean, all of those things are things that have happened because myself, and then as we've grown, the team, and certainly my wife along the way, have said, well, this is interesting. I wonder what would happen if we tried that. And going in with that sense of curiosity and humility, to me, it just leads to a really happy life, and one that continues to grow and connect the dots as you go, I think.
If you look back on your last 7 years and you go, I can't picture where we are now, this is success. Where can the success lead to with actionable books and actionable interviews and stuff? Do you have a vision in your head that you sort of lay in bed or you're in the bath and you think, well, I'm not going to share this with anyone, but this is what I'm planning? Or is it something that just naturally occurs due to the conversations and the movement of the business as a whole?
Yes. I think it's both, David. I think, I'm constantly, and I think it's really healthy to be sort of future visioning as to, where could this go and what could this look like? And then, if that excites you, then put the best plan in place to move towards that. But then you got to let it go. I mean, things come up and things impact that, and things change and new opportunities come up or new roadblocks come up. And I'm not suggesting for a second that you should be heavily influenced by outside factors, but I also think you need to be intelligent about it. And if there's something else that comes up that's more interesting to you, more exciting, and potentially more lucrative than the original path you were on, I think you're foolish just to say, well, I'm sticking with this path because this is the path that I committed to. Well, okay, but who are you proving that to, and what are you proving? So I think it's the combination of the two. So yes, I do have sort of that lofty vision of where Actionable can go, and it's exciting. And I can see about 5 out of the 100 steps necessary to get there. And a lot of them I just don't know what I don't know. And I also appreciate that it will probably change over the next 2, 3, 5 years. It will pivot, maybe in a small way, maybe in a major way. And as long as it's something that holds true to my values and my team is excited about it and it can provide financial income for my family and my team, then I'm all for it and I'm going to pursue it.
Well, what do you think about the phrase that so many people say to me that you don't have to worry about building a business, you just have to provide value, and if you provide enough value, then the monetary rewards will come your way? Do you believe that, or is that a simplistic view? Because I know so many of our listeners are getting that kind of inkling to start their own business or create a blog, all those kind of things, but they have that image instantly that I'm in a job, I don't like this job, I need to make money. Should they focus on that side, or should they focus in on the value if they are looking for escape route from the situation that they're in?
Well, I think everyone's in a different situation, obviously. I mean, when I started Actionable, I had $600 in my bank account and about $4,000 in investments, and that was it. So, I needed to figure out fairly quickly where I was going to, be able to pay rent and eat. So I think, for myself, there was a necessity to generate some revenue. And I was doing social media consulting, and then I was doing some sort of freelance sales stuff. I think one of the things that we shouldn't do is confuse the long-term growth plans with short-term cash flow needs. If your idea is to grow something by providing exceptional value and there's a monetization strategy attached to it at some point, fabulous. And I would say pursue that and don't try to hold off monetizing as long as you can in order to build that community up. And appreciate that you may also need to get a job at Starbucks in order to, pay the rent. And so, that balance between the two is important. I think, where entrepreneurs go wrong is when they spend 3 months building a community and then try to monetize it and then get frustrated with the fact that they're only making $36 a month for monetization. And then they quit and give up and go back to their job. I get it. I mean, I understand there's a lot of moving parts with starting a business, but you got to take a long-term view. It's been really interesting is that our community really started about 5 years ago. And in the last 6 months, more people have come out of the woodwork that are talking about things that happened 5 years ago than ever before. Like I had this lull where it was like, I have my sort of core people that came up right away. And then we've got this growing community of anonymous faces that I don't actually know. And now there's these people, this huge influx, like literally dozens of them in the last 6 months coming out saying, hey, I remember when you started this and I want to buy that, not quite in those words. But my point here is that was 5 years, right, of building a community to generate a couple dozen clients from that original community list. And I'm not saying that, we haven't made money along the way. We have, but it's just really fascinating to me that I never looked at our community as a pool for potential clients. It was sort of a side thing, and now it's starting to have that effect, which is just a really interesting time frame. I obviously clearly haven't fully thought it out yet, but it's just really fascinating to me that it took 5 years.
No, I do think you have to hold back, because I'm building this, and when I started it, it was just to get an audience. End of story. I just needed an audience. Right. Now I've got the audience. People are saying to me, are you monetizing it? And at the moment, I'm not monetizing it at all, because I want to make sure that when I do it, it's for the right reasons. And I want to make sure that the clients that come on board, the sponsorship is right for me and the listeners, and I'm not going to mess around with that in any shape or form. But I do have people giving me advice all the time saying, you should be doing it now, you should be reaching out to sponsors, you should be doing that. And I'm kind of saying, look, once I get it to the point that it is really a brand and people know, I think that's going to take care of itself, and that's just going to happen. And then I can be choosy. I'm not going to go out reaching for people that I don't really know just for the sake of making money. But there is that tipping point, and when my kids' cardboard box that they're sleeping in starts to get a bit soggy, I might have to earn a bit of money to buy another cardboard box so that they're a bit more comfortable at night.
Yeah, I hear that, and I agree to an extent. I also think that for me, anyway, and again, obviously everything's different, everyone's different, but I found that for me, knowing what it is that I want, even if I'm not necessarily putting it out there. So, in the case of a podcast, doodling out what the numbers look like, what would sponsorship potentially be, and just knowing what that is allows, for me, it sort of wakes my mind up to opportunities that I may have missed otherwise. And so I think that, it's important to, going back on myself a little bit here, it's important to build out that community as long as possible, and identifying what it is that you ultimately want and what type of sponsors, or in the case of somebody who's looking to sell their business, what type of company would acquire us and what would that look like, and what would they want to see, and things like that. I think we can get taken by surprise and be in someone else's debt because they have been planning and thinking about it, and so now we're sort of on their playbook. Whereas if we can think about it and plan it out ourselves, even if we're not having the conversations, we're that much more ready to go when we are ready to have the conversations, or if they come up. So I think it's sort of that tip of the iceberg thing where we do need to, under the surface, be, sort of a little more strategic than what might appear to be on the surface.
You've changed me. In that one moment, you've changed me. Show me the money. That's all I'm thinking about. I don't care what I'm going to do with my life. Just show me the money. I've become a prostitute suddenly, instantly. I think that's the first time I've ever said prostitute in any show. You brought it out of me, Mr. Taylor.
That's what you took away. That's good, David. I'm glad that's what my resonating point was. Fabulous. Clearly my work here is done.
You have given me actionable steps, and it's to prostitute myself for money. You've brought me down. You've started off by drinking heavily, and now you've moved me into areas I don't want to go.
Fabulous. Yep, that's what I'm here for. Prostitution and alcohol. Good stuff. I've never said those on a podcast either.
No, there you go. You don't get that on EO Fire, do you? It's all about, do you want to ignite? No, we want to get drunk. And no, shouldn't be going that way. Right, okay. Just before the end of the show, what I want to do is put you on the mic. And this is the part of the show, Chris, that we call the sermon on the mic. And this is when we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back in time, what age Chris would you choose? Would it be the sort of 5-year-old Chris? Would it be the Chris who's battered and bruised at the age of 23? Or would it be just a couple of years ago? So I'm going to play the tune, and this is You Up. This is the sermon on the mic. Ooh, with the best bit of the show, the sermon on the mic, the sermon on the mic.
So if I was talking to my former self, I would go back probably about 5 years. And I would go back to the stage where I was working a full-time job and I was running Actionable. I was at the point where I was looking to leave the full-time job to focus on Actionable full-time. And I was jumping in, I think, for all the right reasons and the wrong reasons. So let me frame this up here. So I would say, Chris, make sure that now how would I put this? Think broader. Think bigger than the here and now. Think bigger about people telling you what you should be doing or where you should be spending your time. Think bigger and further out than other people's fears and other people's concerns. Think with clarity about where you want to go and why for yourself. I think, Chris, you have a habit of looking at the world through the lens of other people and doing things to prove them wrong or to show them that you are capable of doing those other things. I think you let their fears influence you in the opposites, where you want to overcome those fears for them. And I think that all of those things can be powerful motivators, but they need to be balanced with what you want and what you're working towards and what makes you happy in the pursuit of doing that. I think that you need to be okay with the fact that you are providing value to the world, and so you can charge for that value an appropriate rate, and you don't need to feel like you need to be giving it away for free or you're ripping them off in regards to anything. I think I'd encourage you to think about taking care of the people that are most important in your life financially, as well as, pursuing the things that you want to be pursuing. I think this is the most serious conversation that you, young Chris Taylor, have had in the last 5 years. So I think, it doesn't need to be all doom and gloom, and that's not the intention. But I think the point that I want to get across is that connecting with your core more, connecting with what it is that actually wake up to yourself, wake up to what it is that makes you happy. Because I can tell you that 5 years from now, you are living your life from a place of clarity on what makes you happy and where you want to go and what you want to be accomplishing and why. And it goes much more from the distant dot in the future being the cause of happiness to being here and now is happy. And I am working towards that dot because I'm excited about, the challenges and overcoming that and continuing to grow and seeing what I'm capable of and what the business is capable of from an impact standpoint. But it's not all or nothing. It's not about, that is success, that is happiness, and everything leading up to it is, just a necessary evil. You can enjoy the here and now, and you can do it now. You don't need to wait 5 years to reach that point. But you need to find a place to stay disconnected to disconnect from the world, to really zero in on what's happening within you, get away from the busy and start to maybe reflect a little more, try some writing, try talking to yourself on someone's podcast and see how that goes for you. And really, zero in on what matters to you. That's what I would say.
Well, I hope the young Chris pays attention, because he's got a belter of a life, and it's all down to you, young Chris, to make it what it is. Big Chris Taylor, how can people connect with you?
So actionablebooks.com is probably the best bet. If they want to connect on Twitter, I am at Actionable Chris. And then the book, you can do a Google search for, depending on when you're listening to this. It's called Beyond the Picket Fence, all about deliberate choices leading to a happier life.
Well, I think that you've got a happy life, and you've made me happy for the last hour. So thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots of your life. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our past is the very best way to build our futures. Chris Taylor, thank you so much.
David, thank you. That was a lot of fun.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.